Hello and welcome to The Network Effect. Thank you all for joining today. This is our very first episode of this brand new show that we're launching every week, streamed live on LinkedIn at 2 p.m. UK time. So at Centuro Global, we've done a lot of events over the past year. We've done webinars, we've done roundtables, networking events. We had a previous podcast, Coffee with Centuro. And from all of our learnings, we're now upping the game and we're here at a studio in London. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Asma and Ben. How are you guys doing?
Great.
Good. Glad we finally got
Great
here.
that we can sit next to each other, that's for sure.
Yep, no social distancing. Yeah. We've all had the vaccine, it's all good.
Yeah.
So we're really excited for a fantastic show. Just to give you a very quick overview, we're going to be having a quick catch up between us. We've got a fourth host as well who'll be joining us shortly. And we'll be discussing the purpose of the show, what we're doing, what we're hoping to achieve. And then we're going to go into a fantastic interview. So we've got two great guests. We've got Guil Hastings, the Group CEO for TopSource Global Solutions, and Giuliana Victoria Cian from Horizon Capital, a PE firm. And we're going to be discussing how to scale and grow, how Guil scaled his business over the years, and also what PE firms look for when they're acquiring and growing, helping businesses grow. So without further ado, before we get started, let's run the opening credits.
That felt like I needed to play the drums there. We needed to have some instruments in the room.
And here we have Suraj joining us live from Cape Town. How are you doing, Suraj?
Hey guys, welcome. Thanks for having me all the way from a very cold and wet Cape Town. But good to be here. You guys are looking all very spiffy there in the studio, looking really good.
You're looking great too, reminding us of the sunshine from Teletubbies.
Oh my goodness.
Hovering above us, watching over. So,
But yeah, so I wanted to start by discussing what is the network effect, why are we here, why are we doing this show? And as a theory, the network effect, it kind of relates to how networks are really effective based on the number of users. So the more users you have, the more members, the more participants in a network, the more value there is for everybody in it. And obviously that's just a very high level overview and there's more nuances to it. And from my perspective, a really powerful, strong network is one where, as an individual, you know you can access this network for opportunities, for information, for knowledge that you wouldn't be able to get elsewhere. If you need something, you know there's somebody you can go to who can assist, or they may know someone they can introduce you to. And in this day and age, you know, we're all connected online. We've got LinkedIn. We're live on LinkedIn right now. And you may have several thousand connections, but do you really know those connections? How many of those have you actually spoken to or met? And from my perspective, I think a really good network is where everybody in that network has a relationship of some sort. They know that they can come to you as an individual for advice or help or whatever it is in your particular area. And that way, if everyone is able to go to everybody, everyone's giving, and then everyone receives exponentially. And that is a truly powerful network, which is something at Centuro Global. It's a big part of what we do, a member network. And that's what we're building and growing. And we're live on LinkedIn today. We want to cultivate that community on LinkedIn. So you guys, you'll be able to see, you can comment, you can give feedback, chat to each other. And I think we'd like to encourage you to actually, just a one-liner introduction to yourself, say who you are, what you do, what you think you can help others with. And maybe during the show, during the chat, somebody will see your comments and connect with you. And that will grow your network. And that's what we're here for, real life connections.
yeah, I think the other adage to add is, you know, a rising tide raises all ships. And I think that's the goal with the network as well. So your example of having 1,000 connections on LinkedIn is, it's a personal network, but it doesn't have the network effect in the sense of if you add one more person to that pot, that doesn't necessarily add value for your 1,000 other connections. So I think what we're looking to do is sort of to bring in that central area, that way of when you add somebody to your network, it actually increases the value of someone else in that network because they then have access to that person. So I think that's a really important part of getting from a network to an actual network effect, because they're not necessarily always the same thing. And it's about having access to the people and knowing there's a place to go to access the community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I particularly am a great believer in networks myself, having grown business, in the past. And having worked with so many different groups of different people, I'm part of lots of different networks as well. And some effective, some not so effective. And I think it's not just about a network, it's about creating and developing and cultivating meaningful relationships with people that actually make a difference. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be, whether you're a small business, a large business, a corporate, you could be one of the largest companies in the world, but a network is equally as effective for you as it would be for a completely new startup. And some examples, prime examples from a business perspective, having a network, whether it's in local government, whether it's in local policy, whether it's in local corporate or any other area, if you know people and you can support others to be able to affect their relationships and help them build themselves, I think it's really important. And there's one example I remembered actually this morning only, while I was having this conversation with both Zan and Ben. And it reminded me a few years ago, we booked a trip and we were about to go away, and my daughter was actually quite young, and the day before the trip we realised that her passport had expired. So panic stations all round because we were all ready to go. There was no alternative, we couldn't leave her behind, and had to go and try and seek a solution for that problem. And I looked high and low, found a company that actually expedited passports, on the same day basis, went out to them, didn't matter how much it cost, but we needed to find a solution to the problem. They came back and said, sorry, we're not able to help, no matter what I tried, who I went to, how senior I got, still couldn't find a solution. So that led me to opening up my own little black book of people, and speaking to one person led to one conversation to another, and ultimately managed to achieve the outcome that I wanted. But it wouldn't have happened if I didn't have the list of people or the contacts that, that were already existed, and being able to utilize them in the right way to be able to achieve the outcome we wanted. So I think networks can be really, really powerful as long as they are meaningful and as long as they are supporting each other. So I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I think one I looked up a couple of quotes before this on networking to try and get some other people's thoughts, and the one that I think connected most nicely to that was sort of know where you want to go and make sure the right people know about it. I think is that element of you never know who will be able to support, who has a connection themselves or some experience in what you've been doing.
Yep.
Suraj,
just if I can jump in there as well, so that I'm not only the Teletubby sunshine. I love you there. I don't mind being the Teletubby sunshine all the time, but just to match Ben's quote as well. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others that can support you. And I think the networking is that whole thing. And I know we're going on about it, but it is that whole. If you've got 100 people in your network and you add one person, you're not only adding one, but you're adding their whole network. And that's the real strength. And again, I'm watching the chat on the side of the thing as well. I really do encourage you to introduce yourself. This is an opportunity for all of my contacts who might be, dialing in and watching just to see my smiley face, to meet all of your contacts and everyone else. So please, do link up with people. I think that's what we'd really like, is it to be an effective, just get that multiplier effect is what we're trying to get.
Yeah, that multiplier effect is key. And speaking of networks, powerful networks, our own Centuro network, our network's made up of a variety of people. We've got, successful founders, we've got investors, we've got lawyers and accountants. And some people might be thinking, lawyers and accountants? Obviously, they're a very important key to life from a personal perspective and a business perspective.
Some people might disagree with you on that.
But there's a saying that goes that it doesn't matter if you're a small company, whether that's a one-man band or a large multinational conglomerate, if you've got a great lawyer and a great accountant or law firm, accounting firm, that's the best foundation for success. Obviously, there are a whole host of other areas to make a business successful, but those are two key foundations. And Centuro, we're a global network, so imagine having a great lawyer and a great accountant in every country in the world. That's how you know you're set up for success globally.
Well, that could be quite a controversial subject in itself, but yes, no. And lawyers and accountants, that's really where businesses start, right? So foundations of building key relationships, and lawyers and accountants are great feeders of business as well. So it's not just people running to investors, but actually having great relationships with a professional network that you're around can lead you to those valuable relationships. Because when your accountant is doing your tax returns and your financial, I mean, some of the greatest companies I've known, their accountants have introduced them to a company that actually has then gone on to acquire or to invest in a particular business as well. So I think don't discount your legal professional network or your accountancy.
And we're not just saying that because we're both lawyers.
I was about to say, don't discount your marketers and your salespeople. So Siraj and I will be super valuable and helpful, I think, as well.
No, absolutely, we're not.
We're not going to start this whole thing of lawyers against marketers. Let's not go down that.
So I think, should we move swiftly on to the interview segment?
Absolutely.
So we've got an exciting interview now, Asma. Hand over to you.
Yeah, so we are now going to go over to interview my two guests today, which I'm absolutely super excited about. And so I'd like to introduce very shortly, but before I do, I think we need to cut to our next stage of this. And so please, if we can, bring our guests on.
Smooth
and then
transition.
There we go. We made it there. Hello. So we've got Guil Hastings and Giuliana, my two guests for this afternoon for our next segment of our show. So I'd like to introduce you first of all to Guil Hastings. Guil himself is an entrepreneur, having founded TopSource PEO worldwide, a employer of record company that's been established for a number of years and now has been acquired by Horizon Capital. Leading me on to Giuliana, who is investment manager at Horizon Capital and has been, well, actually one of very few women that I know in the investment field herself. And I'm sure we're going to ask her a little bit more about that a little bit later. But Giuliana, you started your career very early on in investment, and we see so many statistics and so many different facts and figures about how few women are in the world of investment. So I would like to talk to you a little bit about that later today. But I'm going to kick off with Guil first, because we want to start right from the beginning of the journey of an entrepreneur, a true story of someone who founds their own company and the success that it becomes, and all the dreams that people have, right? So companies begin their journeys to be able to have that dream that Guil has obviously achieved already. And so, Guil, I was having a look at your profile and I realized you started out as a lecturer in China, right? So a great transformation from being this lecturer at university to then becoming and actually founding this large corporate business that's gone global.
You're making me sound grand. It's all much more humble than that. I like to refer to it as my my post-university period, where I decided a bit of adventure would be worthwhile, and almost looking at two sides of the coin. It was either Wall Street, believe it or not, or something completely off-piste, so they say. So yes, I did start out in China, and taught at Shanghai Jiao Tong University for a few years. Really enjoyed it. Absolutely loved my time there. But underpinning just personal ambitions, I always wanted to have my own business. I started a business in Shanghai with a few friends. We declared victory on that one. It's actually still running today. We sold it to our employees for a nominal, it wasn't even $1, it was a renminbi, which was worth about 30 cents at the time, transferred the paperwork. But after moving back to the States, I joined a small software company, then joined a really fast-growing IT services business. They were one of the fastest growing companies in America, 3 years running, IPO'd, very successful, and I was given a tremendous amount of freedom there to succeed and fail. Fortunately, most of it was success, and I was treated brilliantly. But underpinning all that was always the desire to really start my own thing from ground zero. And so out of that desire, one of my colleagues from the previous business, we both left at the same time, took some time off and came back together and said, we're going to start a business. And we looked at the landscape, and our business plan was fairly simple. It was literally, people say this, but in our case, it truly was written, on a serviette while talking to each other and having a drink. And it was, what do people not like to do that we could do better? and that was it. So we looked at the back office processes in businesses that we had run and why we struggled with those things and what was difficult about them, and just asked ourselves the basic question: could we do it better? And what does that look like? So that was the foundation of the business. It was that was 17 years ago. We started really in payroll services and accounting support services, and continued to grow that. And over that time between foundation and today, we had a lot of trials, a lot of successes, and really hit what we would consider a celebratory success when Horizon Capital entered the picture with us last year.
Yeah, so Gil, a question that comes to my mind now, you've obviously, in charge of a PEO company worldwide. You say it's been around for 17 years. Remote working and PEO as a concept, employer of record as a concept, has actually gone crazy right now, especially in the last 12 months. And you can see it blowing up everywhere. New companies on the horizon, heavy investment in this area, in this industry group. And we're seeing new players on the scene as well, so many people coming on. So you've obviously recognized this at a very early stage. Now, to me, I mean, again, when I look back at my career, employer of record wasn't a concept that really was well understood, and it was something that came out of the US, right? So every time the big companies wanted to send expats into other countries, they didn't want to create a presence, and suddenly they were looking for solutions. So how did this all start in terms of, did you have a client already? Was there a plan in mind? What made the company successful in its first few years?
So we morphed from payroll into employer of record services a little bit by accident, a little bit by design. So we've been approached in India, where we have a lot of our colleagues work. We sell into the India market, but it also acts as a support center for our clients worldwide. We've been approached as early as 2008-9 for mostly, funnily enough, just sector-wise pharmaceutical businesses that had large sales forces in India, and they didn't want to employ them. There are reasons for headcount, some investment drivers, other reasons, but essentially they were looking to outsource this work as an employer service, which is, as you rightfully point out, came out of the US market with PEO services. We looked at it and we dabbled and we didn't play too heavily, but we moved more intently into it around 2012-13, based again on client demand. And we were able to grow that quite significantly over a 4 or 5 year period. Initially, as I say, focused on India, but then moved into other markets. And when Horizon came on the scene last year with us, and we brought together two companies that really brought forward a tremendous opportunity for us to expand much faster than we had experienced before by moving into additional countries. Up until that point, we brokered out, worked with partners. I love the partner commentary earlier, the network commentary earlier, because that's how we built this solution for our clients. And the explosion really has occurred over the past 3 years, with last year just being a significant change of awareness from companies. Mm-hmm. They've opened their consciousness to the issues, the problems that come from employing overseas, but also the opportunity of solving that simply through a service like ours.
And so that's a great answer. And in terms of, when you were building this business, obviously we all have challenges. We come across all kinds of difficulties. There's the plus side. If things are going well, you're servicing clients, you're generating revenue, that's all great. But what challenges have you faced when entering new markets, whether it's for yourself or through your clients, and how have you helped resolve those?
That's a great question. So you were talking about lawyers and accountants earlier, so I'm going to come to that in just a moment. So the challenges are, generally speaking, just lack of knowledge. And Google's a great leveler, but it's not a perfect leveler. When entering a new market, there's a lot of fear. Fear can be around compliance. So let's talk about just employers in the first instance. How do I compliantly employ someone? But also they want to know, how do I exit an employee at the right time? That could be repatriate them home. That could be terminate their employment. It could be I'm on a fixed term contract. And there's a tremendous amount of fear and uncertainty going into new markets about how to address that. And you want to know in advance. So we face that as well. Same exact problem, because we're going in parallel with our clients if we're not going in ourselves to a market. And that comes down to getting great advisors and support So finding those great advisors is usually about networking. It's usually about finding someone who knows someone. Who can advise you, and then making sure that you ask the right questions, and you learn those questions over a period of time from trial and error. And this is where Google often falls short, because you ask a better question, you get a better answer. And that is true whether you're typing it into a browser or you're actually engaging with a great advisor. So employment lawyers are an essential attribute. And when clients are going in, they're happy to work in parallel with us. If we don't have all the answers, they're happy to work and engage with us. They're trusting us to ask those questions, trusting us to help them navigate it, and trusting us then to construct the legal terms that will allow them to operate in a way that they can get on with their business. And that business isn't employing people, that's our business. Their business is to get someone in to do sales, or whether it's consulting work for a client, or it could be a remote engineer. Whatever it is they're looking to engage on the ground in that new market, we want to take all that friction away that comes from fear, uncertainty, and lack of knowledge.
Yeah, that's great. And so just before I go to Giuliana, just one other question. So just the way you've described that, in terms of entering new markets and the challenges and so forth, and being an employer of record, there are so many aspects to it. So obviously your focus is employer of record, but alongside that comes so many other things. What are the legal compliance issues for bringing those people into the country, then the tax issues, yep, and everything else. And if as a company you focus on that one core area, which is your specialism, I'm sure you would need to have a network around you to be able to build, yes, on the rest of it, to then really fully offer that client a longer term relationship and keep them within the pact that you actually create right at the outset. So how has that been? Have you developed a great network? What have the challenges been along the way in terms of bringing good partners on board?
Yeah, that is a good question. So firstly, it's always the first market that's the riskiest, or feels the riskiest. It isn't always. So that's just about, again, building those questions. So the first thing is finding those good advisors, and it is going to be an accountant, it is going to be a lawyer, and it's going to be a payroll provider. And that's the ecosystem in our world, that you get those together working well, and that allows you to engage a client safely. So what's driving a lot of the decision making in our sector is either expansion or getting employees that are contractors today becoming compliant employees. So you're giving them that solution. So the difficulty is finding those advisors. Now, the good news is most quality advisors will have a relationship in multiple markets, whether it's an accountant or an employment lawyer. And they're the first port of call. So you can ask, I'm sitting in the UK right now, we could ask a UK employment specialist, do you know someone who has supported France, a French employment issue? That person may be sitting in London, they may be sitting in France, they may be in Belgium. It actually doesn't matter. What we're looking for is the skill set and the knowledge. Yeah. So we network off of those relationships first and foremost. When that falls short, and it does sometimes, you go to your next network, which will be your accountants, which you can ask the same questions of. They will have dealt with employment-related issues, indirectly or directly. They will have heard about it from clients. And then thirdly, if you don't have a solution there, we actually talk to clients. We're very open about that. So our partner network is really important. We have no problems as well, quite frankly, talking to what some would see as competitors. If you want I love the phrase, go fast, go alone, go far, go together. I've written that one down from a few minutes ago. We work with companies that overlap with our services, and we're not afraid to ask them for help, and likewise. So having that open ecosystem of dialogue really allows us to serve more clients more effectively. So that's the tiers of questions in terms of building out that framework of partners in new markets. And interestingly, it is a compounding effect. When we had a client recently who had an informal employment issue in Mozambique, in Africa, they didn't know how to solve it, and we didn't have a specific Mozambique solution, but it was one phone call and we had it resolved for them. And that's because we already had experience in Mauritius, South Africa. We had a solution in Nigeria that we provided for a client. And so we were able to draw on those relationships, but we knew exactly who to call. With one phone call, we could get it resolved for them very quickly. So it is, quite often when people come to us, they're coming to us with a very fundamental problem, and they're looking for a speed of a solution, trusting us, and then ensuring that we have the integrity to deliver on that. And that's where our network supports that.
Now, I can completely resonate with all of that. I mean, that's exactly how we ran our previous business as well, and the network was actually critical to all of that, to the success of clients as well. So thank you very much for that, Guil. So now coming on to Giuliana. So Giuliana, tell us a little bit about Horizon first and about yourself, why you've gone into the sort of this career of investment, this direction, then a little bit more about what Horizon does.
Yes, hi, Asma. So, as you mentioned, I'm a manager at Horizon, and I've been at the company now for just over 2 years. And primarily, my role consists of researching the target sectors that we do investments in and contacting, meeting with potential interesting business owners. So, the whole feeling of the strength of a network, that resonates a lot with me. And Horizon is a lower mid-market firm. We are based in London. We invest exclusively in B2B service and technology. And particularly the four sectors that we tend to look at are the B2B service space, tech services, data and analytics, and pure software. We are, as I mentioned, primarily UK-based investors, but we have experience acquiring internationally, both Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and the US, and a little bit in APAC.
So what kind of company, so obviously you've given me the types of companies, but what level do companies have to be before you can actually take an interest in them?
So there's a whole host, I would say, of business characteristics, as well as you mentioned, financial performance, and that varies from private equity firm to private equity firm. So, the ones that we share might be a bit different from some of our colleagues, but realistically, the key piece of the puzzle for us is the management teams, is the founders. So, we want to back experienced teams, but that have ambition to accelerate their growth, that not only want to do it organically, but want to do it also inorganically, so through acquisitions. And we want to, have people that are excited about coming on a journey with us. So I'd say, yes, there are some levels and benchmarks of financial performance, but it's really about the people.
Great. And so then just sort of kind of looking at this TopSource acquisition that you've recently made, so you've created a new employer department or employer service that within Horizon? So please, could you share some more about that?
How do we call it, Guil? Global Employment Compliance.
Yeah, Global Employer
Is that
Solutions.
Right? Yes, Guil and I met, what was it, April 2020? Yes, yep. I think April or March 2020. But realistically,
COVID had just hit. It was raging when we first spoke.
Yeah, we have it in the calendar. We do like a toast every year. But realistically, I started looking into that sector 18, 20 months before I spoke to Guil. It takes a long time to build knowledge and conviction to a sector and to research it properly. It takes a long time to contact businesses. Most of what we do, our approach is very much focused on direct outreach from Horizon. We approach businesses that we think are interesting and potentially might be interested in funding and are looking our investment options. And then we contact them, we have conversations, we develop that relationship with them over the years or months. So when the time is right for them, we are there and we're the natural partner of choice.
Okay, great. And so what happens in an acquisition process? I mean, obviously lots of companies ask about this, the complications, and I can see lots of people already asking about, the questions that we've had come in, because so many people set up businesses with this dream of being acquired, exit strategy. What does it mean? So what should companies be thinking about? And what did you have to go through in order to make a successful acquisition happen?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting question, Asma. I think, what we don't see lots of, and I do encourage people out there, if there are any founders listening that, as you mentioned, might be interesting in or looking at their funding options, is approach us directly. Ping us on LinkedIn, anyone in our team, if that's your ambition and you are working towards building your business so you can get to that point of receiving investment. There's no harm in speaking to us early on or approaching us early on. We will try to, help give advice to the extent that we can to help you get to that point. But in terms of process itself, it's probably quite boring. It involves the lawyers and the accountants and all those people.
All the important people.
all the important people. But how it works is there's a first more internal due diligence run by the fund. So in our case, it will be run by the Horizon team. We'll look into the business. We'll ask for some information and start putting together an initial offer. Then once that is shared and the initial offer is agreed, we go into what it's called, the formal due diligence piece, where all the other colleagues will come in and help from other firms as well.
Okay, so I would say that from your perspective it would have been a smoother process, but obviously maybe not so from Guil, right? Having been through an acquisition myself, right? You just, you get to that stage where you just need to kind of take a break. But Guil, how was it for you?
Yeah, Guil, do you need a break?
Yeah. Fortunately, I will get one at some point. Well, we had the benefit of being on both sides. So we had acquired in our time 5 businesses into the group, and we did them off of our own back with our own funding, a little bit of bank help. So we had some experience of going through some of this. We'd also been through due diligence process prior to Horizon, of living through a lot of that, and it is painful. There's no doubt about it. As a business owner, founder, you're being challenged on all the premises of which you've built your business, and the data is really critical. But if you take it in the spirit it's intended, which is, it's not to find fault with your business, but to find the areas where improvement can occur, and where growth opportunities exist, and where investment will make a difference, and I want to learn everything I can about you kind of perspective, it's incredibly valuable. You learn a tremendous amount, and being open is really, really powerful. What I would say is that for those who are building to an exit, there are 3 exit options, as I see it. You could do a trade, so you could sell to an equivalent competitor or a business in your industry. You could go direct to private equity, as we did, or you could go to a business owned by private equity. So that would be a trade type opportunity. And one of the benefits of investment in our case is that we have the ambition to continue to do acquisitions and do them aggressively. And so having that capital as a partner was worth the process that we went through. I would link it back as well. To go through a successful exit process, you have to be emotionally ready. So it's important to know you want to do this. Again, whichever exit avenue you choose, it's not important to me. It has to be important to you that, yes, you're committed to this as a process once you engage, whether you're approached or you approach someone else to do a transaction. The second thing is great advisors make a great difference. And those are going to be a corporate finance specialist, it's going to be a lawyer, and likely an accountant. They're really important for taking some of the emotion out of a transaction and allowing it to move forward at a pace that makes sense, because time kills deals. So you want to make sure that you have good advisors. A great party on the other side of the table, whether it's Horizon or anyone else, will respect great advisors. I often say we like buying well-advised businesses. When they're well-advised, we get deals done. If they're not well-advised, it's much harder for everybody. So I would always encourage people, don't look at the sticker price for the advice that you get. Look at the value that you're getting from it, and get people that you trust around the table who can take the heat out of difficult moments in a transaction. And there are difficult moments. Giuliana and her team were amazing for us. I think we were probably a bit more emotionally prepared than a lot of businesses. And even with that experience and that preparation, it was still difficult at times. But the outcome, which is what we were all after, we achieved. And hopefully for everybody involved, it was a positive one. Certainly from our perspective, as investors and founders in the business, of which I'm one, and from the engagement we've had with our Horizon investors post-transaction, it's been incredibly positive.
No, that's fantastic. And I think what's interesting about this union, and I can see, obviously, I've been speaking to you for some time now, and the synergy that you have, it just seems quite unique in itself, because a lot of times when investment is made, it's quite clinical, it's quite a separated transaction as such. And an investor knows, yes, I'm investing in a business, and the business knows that they're taking investment, but they're all on their own sort of different trajectory in that journey. Yep. But what I like about both of you and the both sort of sides of this is that there really is a real kind of intention to grow and scale, and you're both passionate about it. And so please, if you can, so Giuliana, I'll come back to you from the Horizon perspective. What is the growth plan? I mean, where are you going with these acquisitions that you're making? Obviously, you're consolidating, you're buying new companies, you're bringing them in, you're streamlining it. PEO is huge right now. We see it day in and day out. We see new tech being formed. So what's the plan? What's the vision look like?
For Horizon, our growth plans are laid out in the businesses that we've invested in and the ones that we're looking to invest at the moment. So our focus is always on finding the right opportunities and backing the right teams, whether that is a platform deal like the TopSource and PO, or whether that is an add-on opportunity to our portfolio. So that's where our main focus sits all the time.
Great. And so Guil, from your perspective, where's the growth going?
So if you take broad speaking vision, we see an opportunity to redefine the employer solution market on a global basis. And we intend and are making significant traction in combination of organic growth, which is exceptional right now, with acquisitive growth to expand geographies. So we have clearly defined metrics and objectives with geographic expansion to be in over 50 countries within the next 12 months. We have spreadsheet items, I like to say, that don't get a lot of people excited. My CFO loves them. But we do have spreadsheet items that we want to achieve. And these are, as I say, it's great to have a journey, it's great to have a vision, but you need signposts along the way to know you're achieving success. So we do have these pounds and pence elements that are really important to us, and we're on track to achieve those. But redefining this employer solution market as we see it is really important to hit 3 tiers of solutions for our clients. And that is this, you're right, the PEO market is fast growth. It's absolutely fantastic, and we are acquiring in that space. The second is multi-country payroll and solving this journey that clients go through from hiring one person to suddenly having 20 in Germany and needing a payroll solution for it. So allowing them to go through that transition and still stay with us while we support them in 5 or 6 other countries, or 40 or 50 more countries. And then the domestic payroll market, which is, broadly speaking, it's more pedestrian, but it's incredibly valuable. There's 7.2 million businesses in the UK with less than 250 employees. 4% of those have overseas operations. That's 280,000 employers in the UK that are small businesses that have overseas operations with employees. They need these services as well. They need to understand what's available in the market. That's just the UK. That's not including the 150,000 employees we pay in India, the thousands we pay in Ireland and other markets. So we see this bridging this expansion opportunity that companies are facing as a problem for them as an opportunity for us. And by solving this problem, we hope that they can grow faster. They can do it with less risk. They can feel safer as they achieve it. Acquiring along the way the expertise, additional team members with excellent knowledge that gives us greater scope, expansion, breadth of services is critical to what we're hoping to achieve, and particularly over a 3 to 5 year time period that we see as our chance to redefine this market.
Fantastic. Sounds exciting, actually. So the other thing that I find interesting is you've lived that dream to grow a company, be successful, get to an acquisition, get the money, and you'd think you'd be on a yacht somewhere on a lovely island, right? Sunning away, but what did you decide to do? Reinvest and regrow. I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah, so my yacht's on order. I wish. It's an interesting, and I share this with anyone who's listening, about the thought process about what kind of transaction you want to go through. And I mentioned this earlier: trade sale, be a PE kind of platform deal, or get bought by a business like ours that's in a PE home. And it's an important question about that emotional decision making for a business owner operator who wants to transact, whether they want to carry on in the journey or not. And any answer to that question is fine. I want to be in for a year or two. I want to be out right away. Any of those things are fine. I had to make the decision that was right for me, and that was I did reinvest. So I rolled over a substantial amount of my equity into the new entity. So investing alongside my investors. And not only as a show of support, but as a belief in what we're doing. Either I'm in this or I'm not. And the alternative is do a trade sale and cash out and move on, and that's fine. So it's a decision that you make early in that stage. But it was also valuable to go through that consideration for the other shareholders in our business, and see how everyone made their own decision based on where they were at a stage in life. And those are really, it's critical to have that open discussion. It's okay to have that with potential investors. Much better to be open, much better to lay it on the table. Because if I weren't interested in carrying on, Horizon might have said, okay, we'll find another business, but we'll bring you into that, and then you can exit, whatever, if you want to retire, have the yacht, and go live in Greece or what have you. But having that open conversation allows for integrity in decision making through the investment cycle. It reduces stress. Because everyone's moving towards the same objective. So in our organization, we had an individual who wanted to move towards an exit within 12 months. And that's okay. We're all good with that. Investors are good with it. We're good with it. We all know what we need to do, and we can plan around that. So these considerations are emotive. Some of them are driven by time, where people are at stages in life. Some of them are driven by money. That's fine. Any of those are okay. What we look for when we're seeking to acquire is exactly the same kind of questions that I've outlined just now. So we ask someone, what are you interested in? Do you want to stay? Do you want to leave? Do you want to be on for a year or two? Anything's okay, as long as we know that we can run with it. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Guil. The beauty of that flexibility comes from having a private equity partner. So, in opposition to, a trade sale where your only option is either to leave completely or become an employee but lose your equity stake or any other exit opportunities. With the private equity backed deal, you have that flexibility to choose and adjust exactly to your needs at that point in time. And I think that's what happened in this case as well.
It's a great story and a testament to the relationship, I think, between the two parties, because as I said before, it's very rare that you can get a union that is as effective as the one that you have here, because quite often there will be people listening out there, particularly those who are looking for investment, looking to get acquired. And I think one of the most frightening experiences that I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs and founders is, oh, we don't know who to go to. When we do go to, they don't actually have the conversations, or the conversations are not accurate. And I think it's about building that relationship. And as you say, and I've just looked at your journey and sort of understood how you've developed. And I think it's that honesty and integrity of being able to put your cards on the table and say, look, this is what we're looking for, and this is what we'd like to achieve. Whether it can be achieved or not, at least you're having a conversation. So
Absolutely.
That's what I like.
Absolutely. Yeah. One thing I would just add, Asma, is we were fearful of external investment for years. And fear is usually based on the unknown. If you know about it, you can eliminate the fear of the dark by turning on a flashlight. That's all it takes. And there's a lot of conversations about investors and what they do or don't do, whether they're individuals or professional investors. It's an important consideration for people because you do have to be prepared to act in concert with other people. And that doesn't mean that you don't run the business anymore. It means you run it with a bigger team. And these are people who have the same, as long as you've done your due diligence right together, you all have the same target. So what happens, and I had this conversation with someone the other day, is the difference between starting your own business and say working in a corporate, and I've done both, is when it's your own business, everything's emotional. Winning a client is an emotional experience. Losing a client is an emotional experience. Changes in exchange rates are emotional experiences.
I can relate to all of those things.
Yeah, new tax rulings, all these sorts of things. Whereas if you're slightly separated from that, it being in a corporate environment where the corporation has an impact or is impacted by those, but not you specifically, it's very different. So one of the transition points that's so important with bringing on investors is, as best as possible, keeping the benefits of that emotional investment, keeping the benefits of that energy and drive and excitement, but removing it from making great decisions, removing it from the analysis that allows you to be considered in your approach, and having investors who bring some value. A lot of people talk about, I've met a lot of private equity firms, we bring a lot of value, we do X or Y. I can tell you categorically, the most valuable thing a private equity investor can do is ask great questions. And asking great questions, we get better answers. By asking great questions of us, we're forced to rethink things. But keeping that emotion out of that piece and recognizing that we're all shooting for the same target, we all have the same interests, we all have the same equity, we're all the same shareholders, is incredibly powerful. And I'll be very candid. I wish I had done 2 or 3 things a decade earlier than I did. Not 1 or 2 years, a decade earlier than I did. One is have an incredible CFO on board. That would be one of my early investments. 2, get great advisors early on. And the difference between a corporate finance advisor and a broker is a corporate finance advisor will talk you through all the things that we've discussed today. They'll make sure you're ready. They'll make sure you talk to the right firms. They'll work with you through the process. Those are just 2 of the many things I wish I'd done a decade ago that in the past 6 months, I can look back now and say, oh, if only.
That's
But we're
extremely
doing it now,
valuable
which is
advice,
great.
but completely accurate as well. And I think that would resonate with a lot of people out there. And I think a lot of people don't think about that, because CFO is probably, especially when you're at a startup journey, a lot of people will probably leave the CFO role at a much later date, and they don't realize the importance of it as you go along in that journey. But no, that's really helpful. And so just kind of summing it up and just understanding. So there are so many different factors. I mean, PE is right really at the top end of investment, right? So when companies think about investment, their belief is you've got to be highly established, you've got to be high revenue generating, you've got to be very advanced in what you're doing. But I've seen lots and lots of different articles recently about how PE is becoming more accessible, and it's becoming actually more in conversation than a VC is. So VCs are all about the growth and then some, and you put the investment in and then you wait for your company to grow. I mean, so Giuliana, is that true? Is that an accurate statement, that PE is becoming more friendlier, more accessible, easier to have discussions with? Or, does it very much depend on the type of PE firm you approach?
Yes, to some extent, Asma, it depends on where the fund, where that PE firm sits. So as I described at the beginning, for example, Horizon, we are a lower mid-market private equity fund. So we position ourselves probably in the small cap of the ticket size, and then we have the mid-market and the upper mid-market, so the larger funds that typically invest in larger assets. However, what we are seeing is private equity houses are raising larger funds at the moment, and to some extent some of their ticket sizes are also becoming smaller, and there's some focus on having specific funds allocated to what is called growth assets. So as you probably mentioned, businesses a little bit smaller that have reached that level a bit, that level of growth that they can do on their own and are looking for a partner to go on a journey together. So definitely, I think that is the case, and I do again stress any business ambitious founders out there that are interested in engaging in a conversation and learning more about it. They can either, as Guil recommended, contact a corporate finance advisor, have a first call with them, or go directly to PE funds. Research online someone that seems to invest in your sectors that you might have a connection or not. They might be in your network, as you said, and go directly.
Brilliant. This has been an absolutely fascinating session, particularly for me, and I obviously can learn a lot from it as well. But just your final words, a final tip of the day before we go. I mean, I know, Guil, you've talked a lot about the emotional side, but are there any other tips that you could give to anyone who's looking to maybe look for acquisition or getting acquired, or, complete exit versus reinvesting? Any final tip of the day?
Well, Asma, you've been through this, and I've had enough conversations with you that I've learned from you along the way. So I know you'll be able to either echo or dismiss what I say. One is the Oracle at Delphi, know yourself. Think through what you actually want. Don't be afraid to ask for it. Don't be afraid to move forward with it, and never be afraid to ask for help. And that help should come from the better experts you have around you, the better you'll achieve. So I would do that earlier. Those sort of conversations, what do I want, when do I want it, and who can get me there, who can I ask for help along the way. Those are 2 things that whether it's from business partners or from support staff, investors, it could be in any direction. The earlier you do those sort of things, knowing where you want to go and getting the help you need to get there, the faster you're going to get what you want. There's no question. And if that is an exit, which everyone should plan for an exit. Not everyone does, but everyone should plan for an exit. And if that is to private equity, they will respect the path that you've taken, no matter what that journey is. They will respect it, and they will respect the support that you've had along the way, and it will actually increase your value. So the faster you get those two things done, I can say, as I say, 10 years ago, I wish I'd done some things. I'm a little wiser now. I guess that's what comes with age. But those are the two things that I would do early
Excellent.
on.
Great. And Giuliana?
Yeah, connecting myself to Guil, I would say my tip is it's never too early to engage in a conversation with us. Even if you think, you're not at the right scale, it's not the right time, you're thinking about it, it's a 3 to 5 year even window. It's never too early, because we can start building that relationship, starting to get to know you. We could even help you in some shape or form with, giving access to our network and getting you to that level where then it's the right time for you.
This is amazing, right? So this here is a very powerful conversation in itself. No one would have known that Horizon Capital is so approachable, right? We can just call you, ping you, get you on LinkedIn, connect with you and reach out and say, can you help us? Can we get capital? Can we get investment? Can we get acquired? And people wouldn't know that unless they're obviously hearing it directly from you and then listening to Guil's journey in expansion and the options that there are and the emotional journey. I think it's fascinating. I'm so grateful to both of you. I mean, this is all about the network effect, right? So you're in the network now. So I'm really, really grateful for you joining us, and it's been absolutely brilliant. And thank you very much. And I will follow up with you guys afterwards. So thank you again.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Fantastic. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Wow,
We're back. Yeah.
What a great interview. I mean, that was
done,
amazing, wasn't
very
it?
insightful. Some great takeaways.
I was getting sucked into it. I love watching this show.
No, but it was really good. I was completely engrossed into the whole conversation, and it was such a good union because it's so rare to have that investor and that entrepreneur, business owner union that they've got. And that is actually the key, the sweet sauce to success in itself.
Yeah, well, it's the connections, isn't it? So obviously, Guil was talking about the connections, even with his competition. I think the popular buzzwords to co-opetition these days is collaborating with your competition is valuable. But also, Giuliana and the way sort of private equity looks at, if this company comes into our portfolio, it as itself is a valuable asset, but then how does that also supplement the rest of our portfolio? Is it an add-on? Is it something that the other things can click into? So that those connections in every element of it. Yeah.
So Siraj, I'm going to come to you just for a quick one, because I just realised from Ben's word co-opetition, we did an event about that recently, and this was your idea, that you came up with this whole idea about co-opetition, and we're talking about the network, but co-opetition, competition, and Guil mentioned something about, even with your competitors, you should work together. So I think you've got some great insights into that, so if you could share them with us.
Yeah, and I hope the sound is not going round and round. I know we had a comment from Rosie, so I hope it's all good. So just on that, I can't take the credit for co-opetition as a whole concept. One of my colleagues at the University of Stellenbosch Business School, Jacob Volkskenk, he did his PhD on it, and it really is that we think about competition too much in a binary way, in a I win and you lose. And the thing is that we are wired like that from the time we're little kids, right? So everyone, the guy who ends first in the race, or the girl who wins the spelling bee gets the trophy, and she's standing there, and it's always I win, you lose. And I think it's something that's entrenched in us that we need to try and get past, and look at a way of how can I win while you win as my competition. And I think if there are a few real, COVID has been devastating across the world, and it's left a mark on all of us emotionally and everything else. But there have been some good, and two of them we're talking about today. One is the network, and I think that we're finding that we are connected a lot easier, and we're connected. We're starting to think globally a lot easier. And the other thing is that we are okay to think of our competition as not the enemy, but hey, how do because right now in South Africa, we've gone back down to level 4 in lockdown. All the restaurants are closed, and it's devastating for that industry. But But now all of a sudden restaurants are maybe working together. Can we share a delivery guy? Can we do this? How do we share things? And I think in that way, hopefully there's again some more positives coming out of this.
Brilliant. And so just to follow up on that point that you've just made, this emotional journey that people go on, and I think, you know, business is it's compartmentalized in its own place, but we're all humans, right? And behind every business is a human, is a person. And that emotional connection, that emotional journey, that is the most powerful part of the network, I think. That you can bring those relationships together, and within that, that's the purpose, I think. And so whilst we talk about business and we talk about all kinds of aspects to it, that emotional connectivity, I think, is key to help bring everybody together through competition, through collaboration, whatever the words are, to really bring a powerful view to how we all, you know, are in it. Because there's a big pie here and everyone can have a piece,
yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
I think it's all about...
And again, sorry, Zain, just one last thing on that is, it's still about the people. You know, technology has taken over in a lot of things, but you can, and in our daily life, all of us, we deal with partners all around the world, and we literally, the consistent thing across the world is people still buy people. I still want to work with you because I like you, and it's that connection. And you again, you see it with Gill and Giuliana. There's a certain appreciation of each other's skills and everything else. It's quite tangible. You can actually see it, and it does. That emotion does stretch across that.
Yeah, that's basically what I was about to say. That human element is just so important, I think, because people want to work with people they like, that they can relate to, that you can empathize with, you can kind of connect with. And that's another thing that makes the network so important that we were referring to earlier. It's about building relationships so you know how you can help each other, but also have a connection outside of that, you know, build up those personal relationships and grow collectively.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do here is create the space to really enable that. I spoke to someone the other day, and I was talking to them about having everybody come together on an event, and they go, well, I know some of the people you're working with, so I don't need to come to your event. I can just call them. And I'm like, yeah, but are you going to call them? Like, you're not just going to call them to brainstorm, are you? We might know people on our LinkedIn, but we only ever connect really if there's a reason to, and even that then makes us sometimes hesitant to reach out because we don't want to seem like we're only reaching out because we need something or want something. So I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do here is sort of create that space, have that connection, have those conversations. We'd be more than happy if chat totally goes off on a branch and has a whole conversation separate to what we're talking about if you're interested and if there's something valuable there to be said. So
what's coming up then? So what's this show about? What's next? What is in the pipeline? What's on the agenda?
Yeah, because I guess this being our first episode, we wanted to give you a little bit of a breakdown into our sort of our thesis, what we're looking to do and bring to the show, but obviously we won't give you that breakdown every week. The interviews will be here every week, and we've got a great lineup. We might be able to introduce the next guest shortly. But something we wanted to carry over from some of our other efforts online, we'll be doing, Zain, Siraj and myself will be sort of introducing some global business topics into it in a bit more of a light-hearted way. It won't be a super serious Times briefing. I think we want to bring interesting things that might be a little bit unusual and have a bit of a discussion and hopefully obviously involve you guys.
Not as unusual as the UK government, I hope.
Yes, yeah. There's been a lot of networking in the Ministry of Health, but we're not about that.
Sorry, Siraj, you were saying something.
No, just very, very quickly, I saw something today that South Africa is becoming one of the first countries that had a president go from a prisoner to a president in the great Nelson Mandela, and now we have a guy going from president to a prisoner in Zuma. So we're a unique thing, and we can discuss fun.
You'd like to stand out.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna try bring that something interesting for you to find out about, something maybe you hadn't seen and worth a little bit of a discussion. We'll continue with the sort of interviews, and then we also want to be able to give a bit of an update and dive a bit deeper into the network, into chatting with yourselves and so forth. So we hope you can obviously tune in every week. Did we want to tell everybody who's coming next week? Or
Yep, so we're continuing the investment theme. Who will we
Yeah, next week we've got a great VC coming on, actually. They started a new fund only a couple of years ago. They've grown into 4 countries, particularly in the GCC. So they were a startup fund, so we'll look at their inspiring story, the fact that they're growing at a fast pace, the types of companies they invest in, and hopefully that's going to be another interesting one. And then following that, we've got a couple of CEOs of companies coming in to tell us how they develop their businesses and their own journeys and how inspiring those have been. And over the weeks we'll have some really intriguing guests, and if anyone is actually interested in being on the show, would like to be interviewed and would like to discuss their story, please get in touch. We'd like to hear from you. We would like to discuss inspiring stories, things that are motivational, things that will encourage people will learn from, and we would encourage you to get in touch with us.
yeah, all the different angles I think of global expansion and scaling we want to look at, whether that's adapting products to new markets, investing and going for that angle as well, or the people journey, whatever it sort of is. We're going to dive deep into it and bring you some of that, hopefully valuable interviews. So,
and one valuable point, if you need a lawyer or an accountant, please call us.
Or anything else as well. We're not just lawyers and accountants, we promise.
That's the start. That's the start.
That's the foundation.
There we go.
Perfect.
That's a great way to end the first episode.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll be here every week, Wednesday, 2 p.m. UK time. So see you there.
Thank you.
week.
Thank you everyone
Bye.
for joining. Bye.
Around the block.